I'm sitting in the waiting room at Spectrum Health, clutching a warm Starbucks cup between my hands, when my phone rings. The caller ID shows my daughter Laura's name, and I answer with a smile, expecting to hear about her day. Mom, we're leaving for Europe tomorrow morning. Laura's voice sounds rushed, breathless. I already sold your lake house and your Ford Explorer. We needed the cash for the trip. The realtor said the market was hot, so we had to move fast. Bye? The line goes dead before I can respond. I stare at the phone, watching a Chevrolet ambulance slide past the window with its lights flashing, but no siren. The coffee cup suddenly feels too hot in my hands, but I cannot seem to let go of it. Around me, other families wait for news about their loved ones, speaking in hushed tones, but their voices fade into background noise. My lake house. The little cottage near Holland, where Tom and I spent 35 summers. Where Laura learned to swim. Where the grandboys caught their first fish. Where Tom proposed to me 47 years ago on that rickety wooden dock. A nurse calls someone else's name, and I realize I have been holding my breath. The woman next to me asks if I'm okay, and I force a smile, the kind I perfected during 40 years of teaching elementary school. Fine, I whisper, though nothing feels fine at all. The coffee has gone cold, but I keep holding the cup like an anchor. Outside, the Michigan autumn is painting the trees in brilliant reds and golds, but all I can see is that ambulance disappearing around the corner, taking someone's emergency to its next destination. Opening image. But Laura forgot one very important thing. She forgot that her father was the most careful man who ever lived, and Tom Hayes never left anything to chance. 3 months ago, during his final week at this same hospital, he squeezed my hand with what little strength he had left, and whispered words that made no sense then, but echo clearly now. Margaret, if things ever get really bad, you open that metal lockbox in the garage, behind the Costco paper towels. You'll know what to do. I thought he was rambling from the morphine, talking about old insurance papers or maybe his coin collection. Tom always worried about leaving me with loose ends to tie up. But now, sitting here with my daughter's words still ringing in my ears, those instructions feel less like the confused mumblings of a dying man and more like a lifeline thrown across 47 years of marriage. The coffee cup trembles slightly in my hands. A woman across the room is crying into a tissue, and I wonder if she just received bad news about someone she loves. I wonder if she, like me, is discovering that the people closest to us are capable of the most surprising betrayals. If things get really bad, Tom had said. Well, things just got really bad. I stand up slowly, my knees creaking after sitting too long on the uncomfortable plastic chair. The nurse at the desk looks up as I pass, probably wondering why I am leaving without seeing anyone. But I just nod politely and head for the elevator. There is somewhere I need to be, something I need to find. The lockbox has been waiting for 3 months. Maybe it is time to see what Tom knew that I did not. Theme stated. The garage feels enormous and empty without Tom's red Ford F-150 pickup truck. For 23 years, that truck sat in the same spot, angled just so to leave room for my Explorer on the left side. Tom would back it in precisely, then spend 5 minutes adjusting until it was perfectly straight. Measure twice, park once, he used to joke. Now there is just oil-stained concrete and the ghost of routine. The pegboard still holds his tools, each one hanging in its designated spot, with labels written in Tom's careful block letters. Phillips head, flathead, needle nose, pliers. Even 3 months after the funeral, I have not moved a single screwdriver. Some mornings, I still expect to hear the truck door slam and his boots on the steps leading into the kitchen. I walk to the far corner where we keep the bulk supplies from our monthly Costco runs. Cases of bottled water, extra toilet paper, paper towels stacked 4 packages high. Tom always insisted we be prepared for anything. You never know when you might need something, he would say, loading the truck with enough supplies to last through a Michigan winter. Behind the paper towels, just where he said it would be, I find the metal lockbox. It is about the size of a shoebox, painted dark green, with a combination lock. The metal feels cold and substantial in my hands, heavier than I expected. Tom must have hidden it here years ago, maybe decades ago, waiting for a day he hoped would never come. I run my fingers over the combination dial, wondering what numbers he might have chosen. Our anniversary? Laura's birthday? The day we bought this house? The lock clicks softly as I turn it, but nothing opens. I try again with different numbers, my heart beating faster with each failed attempt. Then I remember the date we closed on the lake house, July 15th, 1987, our first major purchase together. The day Tom said we were finally building something that would last. 7/15/87. Click, click, click. The lock springs open. Set up. I can almost smell the sunscreen and hear the laughter from those golden summers at the lake house. Tom teaching 8-year-old Michael how to cast a fishing line, while 6-year-old David collected smooth stones along the shoreline. Laura was 23 then, newly graduated from Western Michigan, full of plans and dreams that seemed as endless as Lake Michigan itself. The cottage had been a fixer-upper when we bought it, but Tom saw the potential in its bones. We spent 3 summers replacing the roof, painting every room, building new stairs down to the water. Laura helped me plant wildflowers around the porch, while the boys and their grandfather worked on a tire swing that would hang from the old oak tree for the next 25 years. Sunday mornings meant pancakes on the screened porch, watching the sunrise paint the lake in shades of pink and gold. Tom would make coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and I would flip blueberry pancakes until everyone had eaten their fill. The boys would beg to go swimming before the water warmed up, and Tom would time them, making sure they did not stay in too long. 4th of July meant sparklers on the beach and apple pie cooling on the windowsill while we waited for the Holland fireworks to start across the water. Labor Day meant one last barbecue, one last sunset, one last promise to come back next summer. The house held our history in its walls, in the marks on the doorframe where we measured the boys' height, in the photo albums that filled an entire closet. It was not just property. It was our family's scrapbook, written in sandcastles and s'mores, and shared stories that got better with each telling. Set up. Tuesday afternoon brings Doris Miller from across the street, carrying her famous beef stew in a blue Target casserole dish. Doris has lived in that white colonial for 42 years, long enough to remember when this whole neighborhood was farmland. She knows everyone's business and shares it freely, but always with good intentions and a homemade meal. I saw the moving truck yesterday, she says, settling into Tom's old recliner without being asked. Doris has never stood on ceremony, which is one of the things I have always liked about her. Laura's people took quite a bit, didn't they? I pour coffee from the pot I made this morning, noting how Doris avoids mentioning Laura by name. The two of them have never gotten along, not since Laura was 16 and threw a party that resulted in 3 broken windows and a very unhappy police officer. Some grudges run deep in small communities. She said they needed to sell some things. The words taste bitter in my mouth, but I try to keep my voice neutral. 40 years of teaching elementary school taught me how to maintain peace, even when emotions run high. Your girl always did want the shortcut, hun. Doris stirs cream into her coffee slowly, thoughtfully. Remember when she tried to test out of senior year? Or when she wanted to skip her college graduation ceremony? Always looking for the faster way through. The church bulletin sits on the kitchen table between us, listing this Sunday's activities: 9 o'clock service, 10:30 coffee hour, 11:15 choir practice. My name is still on the volunteer schedule for the food pantry, though I have missed the last 2 weeks. Normal life continues, even when your world shifts beneath your feet. The stew will keep for 3 days in the refrigerator, Doris says, standing to leave. And Margaret, if you need anything, anything at all, you just holler. Sometimes family isn't the people you expect it to be. Set up. Midnight finds me at the kitchen table, with the metal lockbox open in front of me, its contents spread across the surface. Like pieces of a puzzle, I am only beginning to understand. Tom kept records of everything, each document filed and labeled with the precision of a man who understood that details matter. The first item is a last will and testament, notarized and witnessed, dated just 6 months ago. Tom updated it without telling me, which stings a little until I read the contents. Everything goes to me first, then to Laura and the boys. Standard stuff, except for one paragraph that makes me read it 3 times to be sure I understand. The second document is a membership certificate for something called Hayes Properties LLC, with my name listed as the managing member. I have never heard of this company, never signed any papers to create it. But there is my signature, or something very close to it, on documents dated 5 years ago. Then come the property deeds, a small strip mall on Division Avenue that I remember Tom pointing out during our drives around Grand Rapids. Good investment, he had said. Steady tenants, solid income. I thought he was just making conversation, There is also a deed for a two-story office building near downtown that I have driven past countless times without realizing we owned it. Bank statements show monthly deposits from rental income, thousands of dollars flowing into accounts I did not know existed. Tom had been quietly building a financial safety net for years, maybe decades, without saying a word to me about it. The man who fretted over every grocery bill was apparently a real estate mogul. At the bottom of the box, folded in half, is a handwritten note in Tom's careful script: "Quiet money protects loud love. Help her stand, don't let her lean. You'll know what to do when the time comes." The date at the top is from last summer, long before his diagnosis, as if he somehow knew what was coming. Catalyst. Samuel Wilson's law office occupies the second floor of a restored Victorian house on Wealthy Street, the kind of building that whispers respectability and competence. I have driven past it hundreds of times, but never imagined I would need the services of someone whose business cards read estate planning and asset protection. Tom always handled our legal needs through his friend at the bank, simple wills and mortgage papers. Wilson himself is younger than I expected, maybe 55, with graying temples and wire-rimmed glasses that make him look scholarly. He listens without interrupting as I explain about Laura's phone call, the sold house, the lockbox contents. His expression grows more serious with each document I place on his mahogany desk. "Mrs. Hayes, what your daughter did may not be legal." Wilson examines the power of attorney document that supposedly authorized the lake house sale. This signature looks questionable, and there's no proper notarization. Michigan law requires specific procedures for real estate transactions, especially when the owner isn't present. He pulls out a thick folder and flips through several pages. The county has no record of this sale being properly recorded. Without proper recording, the title transfer is invalid. We can file an action to cloud the title and halt any further transfer until we sort this out. The phrase "cloud the title" sounds ominous, like a storm gathering over someone else's parade. What does that mean exactly? It means we file paperwork with the county clerk's office that puts a legal question mark over the property. No one can sell it, refinance it, or transfer it until a court decides who really owns it. It buys us time to investigate and protect your interests. Wilson leans back in his leather chair. The question is, how do you want to handle this with your daughter? This could become a criminal matter if we find evidence of fraud. Debatee. The drive home from Wilson's office takes me past the police department on Monroe Avenue, and I find myself slowing down, wondering if I should stop. The rational part of my brain says Laura broke the law, probably several laws, and deserves whatever consequences come from that. The mother part of my brain remembers teaching her to ride a bicycle, holding her hand through thunderstorms, helping her with algebra homework at this same kitchen table. I park in my driveway and sit in the car for 10 minutes, watching Doris water her flower boxes across the street. She waves and I wave back, both of us pretending this is a normal afternoon in a normal life. But nothing feels normal anymore. My daughter stole my house and my car to fund a European vacation. Those are not words that should ever make sense together. The police would investigate, probably press charges, possibly send Laura to jail. She would have a criminal record, making it harder to find work, harder to rebuild whatever financial mess she has created for herself. The boys would grow up knowing their mother went to prison for stealing from their grandmother. But letting her get away with it sends a different message entirely. That family loyalty matters more than honesty. That love means enabling destructive behavior. That I am willing to be a victim, rather than hold the people I love accountable for their choices. Tom's note echoes in my mind. Help her stand, don't let her lean. Maybe the kindest thing I can do for Laura is to let her face the consequences of her actions. But maybe there is a middle path, a way to recover what was taken without destroying what is left of our family relationship. I choose the quieter road. Recover the assets first. Say nothing to Laura until I understand the full scope of what happened. Give her a chance to make it right before involving the authorities. Debatee. Wilson moves quickly once I give him permission to proceed. Within a week, Hayes Properties LLC is fully under my control, with new bank accounts and a registered agent who answers to me. The paperwork feels surreal, like playing dress-up in someone else's business clothes, but Wilson assures me it is all legitimate. "Your husband set this up very carefully," he explains over coffee in his office. "Everything is designed to protect assets from potential creditors or legal judgments." He was thinking several moves ahead. The strip mall generates $4,000 a month in rental income from a pizza shop, a dry cleaner, a nail salon, and a small insurance office. The office building brings in another $6,000 from professional tenants, an accounting firm, a dentist, and a financial advisor. Money I never knew we had. Income that could support me comfortably for the rest of my life. Wilson files corrective deeds and legal notices with the Kent County Probate Court, all tied to Tom's estate proceedings. The paperwork is dense and confusing, full of legal phrases like constructive notice and lease pendens. But the effect is simple. The lake house sale is officially contested, and no one can finalize the transaction until a court decides who really owns the property. At the county clerk's office, a woman with tired eyes slides a manila folder labeled Hayes across the counter. Inside are copies of all the documents Wilson filed, official stamps marking each page as received and recorded. The bureaucracy of justice moves slowly but deliberately, each form a small step towards setting things right. This should freeze everything while we investigate, Wilson says as we walk down the courthouse steps. Your daughter and her husband can't complete the sale, can't collect the money, can't do anything with that property until we resolve the ownership question. Break into two. Sunday morning at Grace Community Church feels different now that everyone thinks I am a penniless widow. The same people who used to ask about my lake house plans now speak to me in the careful, gentle tones reserved for those who have lost everything. Betty Morrison brings me a casserole and a sympathetic pat on the arm. Jim Fletcher offers to help with yard work. Mary Chen slips me a $20 bill for groceries when she thinks no one is looking. I should correct their assumptions. Tell them about the LLC and the rental properties and the comfortable bank balance that Tom left behind. But something about their kindness, their willingness to help someone they believe needs it, makes me reluctant to shatter their good intentions. Maybe there is value in seeing how people treat you when they think you have nothing. The phone call comes Tuesday morning while I am reading the newspaper. A woman from Adult Protective Services introduces herself as Janet Mills and asks if she can schedule a home visit to check on my welfare. Someone called in an anonymous tip expressing concern about an elderly woman living alone without adequate resources. I appreciate the concern, I tell Janet, but I'm managing fine. I have family support and community connections. I don't need services at this time. She accepts my polite decline, but I can hear the skepticism in her voice. Anonymous tips usually come from people who know enough details to sound credible. I suspect someone has been talking to the wrong people about my supposedly desperate circumstances. Playing the part of the struggling widow requires more acting than I expected. I shop at Aldi instead of Mayer, clip coupons from the newspaper, and decline dinner invitations that might seem too expensive for my reduced circumstances. The deception sits uneasily, but Wilson advised me to keep a low profile until we know the full extent of Laura's activities. B story. The office building on Ionia Avenue is a neat two-story brick structure with good bones and well-maintained landscaping. I have driven past it dozens of times without realizing Tom owned it, without knowing that the mortgage payments and property taxes were coming out of our accounts. The rental income more than covers the expenses, making it a solid investment that has quietly supported us for years. But when I stop by to introduce myself to the property management company, the news is not all good. 2 months of mortgage payments are past due, along with property taxes and insurance premiums. The total delinquency is over $12,000, enough to trigger foreclosure proceedings if not addressed quickly. The property manager, a harried woman named Susan Torres, shows me a stack of letters and legal notices. We've been trying to reach the LLC contact person for weeks, she explains. The bills kept coming back marked Return to Sender from some address in Toronto. We were starting to think the company went out of business. Toronto, where Laura said she and Richard were traveling, where they apparently established some kind of forwarding address to intercept mail intended for Hayes Properties LLC. The scope of their deception is becoming clearer and more troubling with each new discovery. I write a check from the LLC account to bring the payments current, watching Susan's relief as she processes the payment. 6 tenants work in this building, people who depend on having a stable place to run their businesses. An accountant, a therapist, a small law firm, a marketing consultant, and 2 other professionals whose livelihoods would be disrupted by foreclosure. I'm so glad you're here, Susan says. We were really worried about what would happen to everyone if the building went under. The tenants were innocent victims in whatever scheme Laura and Richard cooked up. Protecting them seems like the right thing to do, even if it cost me money I did not know I had. Fun and games. Cleaning out Tom's old roll-top desk reveals a treasure trove of carefully preserved documents and a few surprises that make me understand. My husband was even more methodical than I realized. Behind the usual collection of warranties, insurance policies, and tax returns, I find a small flip phone still in its original packaging, along with a note in Tom's handwriting, "Emergency backup. Activated and ready." The phone is an older model, the kind that seems enormous compared to modern smartphones. When I turn it on, it shows 17 voicemail messages accumulated over the past 2 months. Most are routine calls from businesses or wrong numbers, but message number 12 stops me cold. A man's voice, urgent and frustrated. "This is Richard calling about the Hayes property documents. Look, we've been over this 3 times already. I'm telling you, the power of attorney is legitimate. No, we don't need to meet in person to notarize the sale. Mrs. Hayes is in the hospital and can't travel. We need these papers processed today, or we're going to miss our closing date." A woman's voice responds calmly. "Sir, Michigan law requires in-person verification for real estate transactions of this magnitude. I cannot notarize documents without meeting with the principal party. If Mrs. Hayes cannot come to my office, I can arrange a hospital visit, but someone needs to be present." Richard's voice turns sharp. "That won't work. Just process the papers I sent you. Everyone does it this way now. It's all electronic anyway. I'm sorry, but I cannot comply with that request. I'll need to speak with Mrs. Hayes directly before proceeding." The line goes dead. The timestamp shows this call happened 3 days after Tom's funeral, when I was still barely functional from grief. Richard was apparently working fast, hoping to complete the fraudulent sale before I recovered enough to notice. I dial Wilson's number with shaking hands. The voicemail could be crucial evidence, proof that Richard knowingly used forged documents and tried to circumvent legal safeguards. Within an hour, Wilson arrives at my house with a digital forensic specialist, who copies the entire contents of the phone and preserves the metadata that will prove when and where the calls were made. Fun and games, midpoint setup. The taxi pulls into my driveway at 11:43 on a Tuesday night, its headlights sweeping across the living room windows, where I sit with a book I'm not really reading. I watch Laura emerge from the back seat, moving slowly like someone who has been traveling for 20 hours and sleeping badly for much longer. She pays the driver with crumpled bills from her purse, then stands in the driveway, looking at the house, as if she cannot quite remember where she is. The security company called an hour ago to tell me someone was at the front gate, asking to be let into the subdivision. Laura had forgotten that the HOA installed a gate system 2 years ago, requiring residents to provide access codes to visitors. She had to convince the overnight security guard that she belonged here, that this was actually her childhood home. I open the door before she can knock, and we stand there looking at each other in the porch light like two people who have forgotten how to have a conversation. Laura looks thinner than she did 3 months ago, and there are lines around her eyes that were not there at Tom's funeral. Her clothes are wrinkled, and her hair needs washing, but she is still my daughter, still the little girl who used to run to me when thunderstorms scared her. "The European adventure didn't work out?" I keep my voice neutral, not wanting to start an argument on the doorstep. Laura's laugh has no humor in it. "Nothing worked out, Mom. Nothing at all." I step aside to let her in, noting how she hesitates at the threshold, like someone entering a house for the first time. The living room looks the same as it always has, but Laura surveys it with the careful attention of someone taking inventory, probably wondering what else might have value if things get desperate enough. "Your room is still the same," I tell her, though we both know she will not be staying long. "There are clean towels in the hall closet if you want to shower." "Thanks." Laura drops her suitcase by the stairs. "Mom, I need to tell you something about the house and the car. Things got complicated in Europe, and we needed money fast. I can explain everything tomorrow when I'm thinking more clearly, but tomorrow feels too far away, and I am tired of pretending I do not know what she did. Laura, honey, maybe you should get some rest. We can talk when you're ready." Midpoint emotional turn. Wednesday morning brings the sight of my daughter sitting at the kitchen table under the glow of her Dell laptop, sorting through a small collection of jewelry like someone planning a garage sale. Grandma Hayes's wedding ring, The pearl necklace Tom gave me for our 25th anniversary, a sapphire bracelet that belonged to my mother. Family heirlooms reduced to emergency liquidation. The jewelry store downtown said they could give me $1,500 for all of it. Laura says without looking up. Maybe $2,000 if I'm willing to wait for them to find individual buyers. The coffee maker gurgles behind me, filling the morning quiet with a sound that used to mean comfort and routine. Now it just marks time while I watch my daughter prepare to sell the last tangible connections to our family history. The pearl necklace still smells faintly of my mother's perfume, white shoulders, which she wore for 60 years. The collection people have been calling Richard's phone every day. Laura continues, picking up a small diamond ring that Tom's mother wore to her wedding in 1943. We owe more than I thought we did. A lot more. I pour coffee for both of us, adding cream to hers the way she has liked it since high school. Some habits survive even the worst circumstances. Laura takes the cup gratefully, wrapping her hands around it like it might anchor her to something stable. This is all I have left that's worth anything. Her voice cracks slightly on the last word. Everything else is gone. The house in Toronto, the cars, the savings account, Richard's business, all of it. She holds up the sapphire bracelet, and morning sunlight catches the stones, throwing tiny blue reflections across the table. I remember you wearing this to my high school graduation. You said it made you feel elegant. It still would, I tell her. Though we both know elegant is not a luxury either of us can afford right now. Bad guys close in. By Thursday, Laura has found work with a commercial cleaning company that services downtown office buildings during the overnight shift. She leaves the house at 9:30 in the evening, wearing old jeans and sneakers, carrying a lunch packed in a brown bag like someone heading to a factory job in a different century. Mrs. Johnson, her 60-year-old supervisor, turns out to be a godsend. She takes Laura under her wing, teaching her how to make a terrazzo floor shine without leaving streaks, how to clean windows on high floors without leaving smudges, how to empty wastebaskets efficiently and restock supplies without wasting time. Most importantly, she shows Laura how to take pride in honest work even when the work is hard. Cleaning is not glamorous, Mrs. Johnson tells her during their first shift together. But it's honest, and honest work never hurt anybody. You show up on time, do the job right, treat people with respect. That's how you keep your dignity no matter what kind of work you're doing. Laura comes home each morning at 6:30, exhausted, but oddly peaceful in a way I have not seen in years. She showers, eats breakfast, and sleeps until mid-afternoon. Then she spends a few hours applying for day jobs, working on a budget, and slowly putting her life back together one small step at a time. I want to help, want to write checks and solve problems and make everything easier. But Tom's note keeps echoing. Help her stand. Don't let her lean. Maybe Laura needs to discover her own strength before she can appreciate help from anyone else. The work is changing her. Her hands are developing calluses, but her shoulders are straighter. She talks about her coworkers with genuine affection, about Mrs. Johnson's stories and the security guard who always has coffee ready when they arrive. She is learning to find satisfaction in small things, a job well done, a paycheck earned, the respect of people who value reliability over pedigree. Bad guys close in. Friday brings an avalanche of official mail that changes everything. IRS notices about unreported income from Hayes Properties LLC. Bank letters warning of account freezes, pending investigation of suspicious transactions. A Kent County audit notice demanding documentation for property tax payments that do not match reported ownership records. Each envelope contains another piece of bad news, another government agency asking questions I cannot answer. Laura finds me at the kitchen table, surrounded by opened letters and forms, trying to make sense of financial obligations I did not know existed. The IRS wants $43,000 in back taxes on rental income that Tom apparently never reported. The state wants documentation proving we have legal authority to operate Hayes Properties LLC. The county wants to verify property ownership before processing any more tax payments. Mom, what is all this? Laura picks up one of the IRS notices, her face going pale as she reads. Hayes Properties? I've never heard of any Hayes Properties. The weight of keeping secrets suddenly feels unbearable. I hand her Tom's handwritten note and watch her face change as she reads his words about quiet money and loud love. Your father left us more than I realized. But apparently, Richard found out about it and tried to steal everything, not just the lake house. Laura sinks into the chair across from me, the IRS notice still in her hands. Mom, I ruined us. I didn't know about any of this, but I gave Richard access to everything. Bank accounts, mail forwarding, power of attorney documents. Oh God, what did he do? For the first time since Tom's funeral, I let myself cry. Real tears. Not the polite dampness that comes with public sympathy, but deep, racking sobs that come from months of holding everything together while the world fell apart around me. Laura comes around the table and holds me, both of us crying for different reasons, but sharing the same devastating realization that we are in much deeper trouble than either of us understood. All is lost. I cannot sleep, so I make coffee and sit on the front porch at 3 in the morning, watching the empty street and trying to figure out what Tom would do in this situation. The night air smells like autumn leaves and the possibility of frost, reminding me that winter is coming. And problems do not solve themselves just because you ignore them long enough. Tom's note sits on the porch rail beside my coffee cup, the paper soft from handling. Help her stand, don't let her lean. The words take on new meaning in the darkness, away from the panic and tears of the afternoon. Maybe Tom was not just talking about money. Maybe he was talking about something more fundamental, the difference between rescuing someone and teaching them to rescue themselves. Laura made terrible choices, trusted the wrong person, and created a financial disaster that threatens both our futures. But she also came home, found honest work, and started rebuilding her life without asking me to fix everything for her. She is standing, even when standing is hard and exhausting and pays minimum wage. At 4 o'clock, I call Wilson's answering service and leave a message asking him to proceed with everything he has been preparing. File the fraud charges, pursue the criminal case, present the evidence, and let the legal system sort out justice. Richard needs to face consequences for what he did. More importantly, Laura needs to see that actions have consequences, but also that people who care about you will stand with you while you deal with those consequences. The flip phone recording, the forged documents, the fraudulent power of attorney, the illegal mail forwarding. Wilson has enough evidence to build a solid case. By morning, he will have subpoenas for bank records, phone logs, and notary statements that will trace exactly what Richard did and when he did it. The sun comes up slowly, painting the sky in gentle pastels that promise a clear day. I finish my coffee and go inside to wake Laura. It is time to tell her everything, show her the evidence, and let her decide what kind of person she wants to be going forward. Tom would approve, I think. Help her stand. Do not let her lean. Dark night of the soul. Wilson moves with the efficiency of someone who has been preparing for this moment since our first meeting. By 10 o'clock Monday morning, he has filed complaints in both Kent County Probate Court and Michigan State Court fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, and criminal conversion. The paperwork is dense with legal terminology, but the basic story is simple. Richard used forged documents to steal property that did not belong to him. The local police department coordinates with Canadian authorities to track Richard's location. He has been staying at a hotel in downtown Toronto, apparently confident that distance provides protection from American law enforcement. He is wrong. The warrant goes through international channels, and by Tuesday afternoon, Richard is in custody awaiting extradition proceedings. The speed surprises me. I expected months of legal maneuvering, delays, and bureaucratic complications. But Wilson explains that financial crimes leave clear paper trails, especially when the perpetrator uses banks, notaries, and government offices that keep detailed records of every transaction. Richard got greedy and careless, Wilson says as we review the evidence file in his office. He tried to move too much money too quickly, and he left fingerprints on everything. The notary kept copies of all their conversations. The bank recorded every phone call. Even his hotel in Toronto used his real credit card. Laura sits beside me, reading through depositions and witness statements, with the focused attention of someone who needs to understand exactly how badly she was betrayed. She says nothing, but I can see her working through the timeline, connecting dots, realizing how many lies Richard told, and how thoroughly he planned to destroy both our financial futures. Break into 3. Wilson's conference room feels like a courtroom as he spreads evidence across the mahogany table, certified transcripts of Richard's phone calls, bank records showing unauthorized transfers, email threads between Richard and various accomplices, and side-by-side handwriting analysis proving signature forgeries. Each document represents another lie, another theft, another violation of trust. Your son-in-law was running a sophisticated financial fraud, Wilson explains, pointing to a timeline that shows Richard's activities over the past 6 months. He established false credentials, intercepted mail, forged signatures, and manipulated multiple institutions to steal property worth over $400,000. The bank recordings are particularly damning. Richard claimed to be acting on my behalf due to medical incapacity, provided forged power of attorney documents, and instructed financial institutions to redirect communications to addresses I had never heard of. His voice sounds confident and professional, like someone who has done this before. Laura listens to the recordings with her hands clenched in her lap, her face growing paler with each new revelation. I gave him access to everything, she whispers. Bank routing numbers, social security information, copies of Mom's identification. I thought he was helping us plan for the future. The notary's sworn statement describes Richard's increasingly aggressive attempts to circumvent legal safeguards. When she refused to notarize documents without meeting me in person, he tried to find other notaries, offered bribes, and eventually resorted to forgery. The woman kept detailed notes of every interaction, apparently sensing that something was wrong. He played a long game, Wilson continues. This didn't happen overnight. He spent months gathering information, establishing false documentation, and setting up the infrastructure to steal everything you owned. The only reason he didn't succeed completely is that your husband built legal protections that Richard couldn't overcome. Laura finally speaks, her voice barely audible. I helped him do this. I gave him everything he needed to steal from my own mother. Break into 3. The county courthouse mediation room feels formal and intimidating, with its heavy wooden furniture and American flag in the corner. Richard's attorney, a sharp-dressed man from Toronto, tries to project confidence as he arranges his papers, but I can see the tension in his shoulders. He knows his client is in serious trouble. Richard himself looks smaller than I remember, older and more tired than the confident man who married my daughter 5 years ago. He avoids eye contact with Laura and me, focusing instead on whispering with his lawyer about plea bargain possibilities and extradition timelines. Wilson wastes no time with pleasantries. He plays the raw audio recording of Richard trying to bribe the notary, lets it fill the quiet room with Richard's own voice demanding illegal services. Then he presents bank records showing exactly where the stolen money went. Luxury hotels in Europe, expensive restaurants, shopping sprees, and gambling losses that totaled more than twice what Richard actually stole. My client maintains that he believed he had proper authorization, Richard's attorney says, but his heart is not in the argument. The evidence is too overwhelming, too clearly documented, too obviously criminal. Wilson slides a final document across the table, a forensic accounting report showing that Richard spent the stolen money faster than he stole it, creating gambling debts in 3 countries and obligations to creditors who are much less patient than American courts. Richard's attorney asks for a recess to consult with his client. When they return 20 minutes later, Richard is ready to negotiate a settlement that admits full liability and agrees to cooperate with criminal proceedings in exchange for protection from the international creditors who are also looking for him. Finale confrontation. Judge Patricia Hendricks has been on the Michigan State Court bench for 15 years, long enough to have seen every variety of financial fraud and family betrayal. She reviews Wilson's evidence file with the careful attention of someone who understands that justice requires both punishment and restoration. Mr. Hayes, she addresses Richard directly. You have pled guilty to multiple felony charges: identity theft, elder fraud, criminal conversion, and conspiracy to commit larceny. The evidence presented shows a systematic plan to defraud your mother-in-law of her life savings and primary assets. How do you plead to the additional charge of interstate financial fraud? Richard stands slowly, his voice barely audible. Guilty, Your Honor. Judge Hendricks nods and turns to the restitution portion of the proceedings. The court orders the immediate return of all property to Mrs. Margaret Hayes, including the lake house, vehicle title, and any remaining funds from Hayes Properties LLC accounts. The fraudulent sale is hereby voided, and all associated contracts are null and void. She signs several documents with deliberate precision. Furthermore, this court refers this case to the Kent County prosecutor for additional criminal charges. and recommends a sentence of 5 to 7 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. From the gallery, I hear Doris Miller quietly clap her hands. She drove down to the courthouse to show support, along with Mrs. Johnson and several people from church who wanted to witness justice being served. Sometimes community means showing up when it matters most. Laura squeezes my hand as the judge announces that all debts incurred through Richard's fraud are void, meaning the collection agencies can no longer pursue her for money she never actually borrowed. The legal nightmare is officially over. Finale victory. Outside on the courthouse steps, with autumn sunlight warming our faces and a cool breeze carrying the smell of fallen leaves, I finally tell Laura about the strip mall, the office, building, the LLC, and Tom's careful plan to protect our family's financial future. She listens without interrupting, occasionally shaking her head at her father's elaborate preparations for disasters he hoped would never come. He knew this might happen someday, I explain, showing her copies of the property deeds and rental agreements. Not exactly this, but something like it. People getting greedy, family members making bad choices, emergencies that require more money than most people have saved. Laura stares at the documents as if they are written in a foreign language. Mom, you're rich. We're rich. The rental income alone is more than I made in my best year working for Richard. We're secure, I correct her. There's a difference. Money gives you choices, but it doesn't make choices for you. Your father spent 40 years building this safety net because he understood that life is unpredictable, and families need protection from their own worst impulses. A group of lawyers walks past us, briefcases in hand, probably heading to the next legal drama playing out in one of the courtrooms behind us. Justice moves slowly but steadily through these halls, case by case, document by document, decision by decision. I want to keep working, Laura says suddenly. The cleaning job, I mean. Mrs. Johnson offered me a promotion to supervisor, and I like the work. It's honest, and I'm good at it, and it pays enough to support myself without depending on anyone else. I smile at her, remembering Tom's words one more time. Help her stand, don't let her lean. He would be proud of both of us, I think. Laura for choosing independence over easy money, and me for letting her make that choice. Money rescues for a day, I tell her, paraphrasing something I read once. Wisdom rescues for a lifetime. Stand with me, not behind me. We walk down the courthouse steps together, two women who have learned the difference between being saved and saving ourselves. Final new rules. The cottage near Holland looks exactly as it should in late spring. Fresh paint on the shutters, new screens on the porch, wildflowers blooming around the foundation where Laura and I replanted them together. But the interior tells a different story now, with bunk beds. Where the guest room used to be, industrial-grade furniture built to withstand heavy use, and a commercial kitchen that can feed 12 people at once. Grace Community Church provided volunteers for most of the renovation work, along with the YMCA and several local businesses that donated materials and labor. What started as a simple restoration project became a community effort to create something meaningful from the wreckage of family betrayal. The cottage now operates as a short-term shelter for women, leaving financially abusive situations, funded through Hayes Properties LLC, and managed by a partnership between the church and the county social services department. Women can stay for up to 6 months while they find jobs, secure housing, and rebuild their independence. Laura drives over from Grand Rapids 3 times a week to help with intake interviews and support groups. She finished her community college degree in social work last December and plans to pursue a bachelor's degree through Western Michigan's part-time program. The cleaning company promoted her to regional supervisor, managing crews across 3 counties, work that pays well and provides excellent benefits. Mrs. Johnson comes to Sunday dinners sometimes, along with Doris and Wilson and various women who have stayed at the cottage and moved on to independent lives. The dining room table that once hosted only family gatherings now regularly seats 10 or 12 people who have become family through shared experience and mutual support. Your father would love this, I tell Laura, as we watch 2 little girls build sandcastles on the beach, while their mother applies for jobs on her laptop from the porch. He always said the lake house was meant for making memories. Now, it's making new kinds of memories for people who need them most. Final image prep. Thursday before Thanksgiving finds us setting up tables on the cottage's screened porch, overlooking Lake Michigan as the afternoon sun turns the water into liquid gold. The forecast calls for clear skies and temperatures warm enough to eat outside. Perfect weather for a feast that has grown far beyond what any of us originally planned. Laura arrives early with 2 apple pies and a green bean casserole, followed by Mrs. Johnson with cornbread dressing and sweet potato souffle. Doris brings her famous beef stew, which has become traditional even at Thanksgiving. Wilson contributes wine and an elaborate centerpiece made from autumn leaves and pine cones. The current cottage residents help with final preparations, setting tables, arranging chairs, and creating place cards for 18 people who will share this meal. Maria and her 2 daughters, who fled an abusive marriage in Texas. Jennifer, a retired teacher who lost her savings to financial fraud. Sandra and her teenage son, who are rebuilding after bankruptcy, wiped out 3 generations of family wealth. At 4 o'clock, we gather around the long table as the sun begins its descent toward the horizon. Laura asks if she can say grace, something she has not done since she was a child. Her voice is strong and confident as she thanks God for second chances, honest work, and the people who show up to help when life falls apart. The turkey is perfect, golden and juicy from Mrs. Johnson's secret brine recipe. The stuffing tastes exactly like my mother used to make. The cranberry sauce strikes the right balance between tart and sweet. But the real nourishment comes from the conversation stories of struggle and recovery, plans for the future, laughter that carries across the water. As darkness falls and the first stars appear, Maria's youngest daughter asks if we can do this again next year. The question hangs in the air like a promise, and I realize that Tom's quiet money has indeed protected Loud Love, just in ways neither of us could have imagined. Family isn't just blood, I say, looking around the table at these people who have become essential to my life. It's who shows up to help you stand. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed it, please hit subscribe and like, and share in the comments where you're listening from. I truly appreciate your support. On the screen, you'll see 2 more stories I recommend. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next story.